A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Sneha Kulkarni, from the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies of Bhosla Military College, Nashik. It is my proud privilege to extend you all a heartily welcome in this special webinar on marine diversity and its ecosystem, organized by CHME Society's Bhosla Military College and Kanhoji Angre Maritime Research Institute on the occasion of International Coastal Cleanup Day. A warm and cherished afternoon to our most esteemed, valued, honorable chief guest, Dr. Deepak Apte sir, Managing Director of Srushti Conservation Foundation. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of Kanoji Angre Maritime Research Institute and Bhosla Military College. Dr. Deepak Apte sir, Dr. Deepak Apte sir, am I audible to you? Dr. Deepak Apte sir, kindly unmute yourself. Along with Dr. Deepak Apte, also I extend my welcome to all the teachers, Ramdani students, and everyone who is interested in the subject content and attending today's webinar. At the outset, I would like to present the brief introduction of our esteemed guest, Dr. Deepak Apte sir. Dr. Deepak Apte is currently Managing Director at Srushti Conservation Foundation. His wildlife career spans over 3.5 decades. His key areas of expertise are marine and coastal biodiversity, integrated coastal zone management, coastal regulation zone, climate change and land degradation, and nature conservation related policies. He completed his education as doctorate in zoology, specifically in marine ecology, post-graduation degrees from University of Mumbai in zoology, integrated coastal zone management from Bangkok, and marine policy from Duke University, USA. His wildlife career over 3.5 decades and contributed greatly to the conservation of nature and helped develop several policies at national and international level. He has completed 28 years service at Bombay Natural History Society prior to the joining as Executive Director of Srushti Conservation Foundation. As a principal scientist, he has implemented more than 50 major projects, over 1,000 training programs, and written over 100 popular articles and editorials and 35 technical reports. Besides traversing length and breadth of India's wildlife landscapes and seascapes, he has also traveled to about 50 countries for scientific and academic work, as well as presenting and participating in the international seminars and conferences. His work in Lakshadweep archipelago has recently paved way to establish 3 community reserves under Wildlife Protection Act 1972, totaling 675 square kilometers of coral reef areas. He is recipient of several awards with fellowships as Department of Ocean Development, Government of India, recipient of prestigious Green Oscar Whitley Award for his work on coral reefs and giant clams, recipient of 3 Whitley
दत्ता
Community Nation Awards, Global
हेलो
Fellowship,
दत्ता सर नमस्कार.
Global Fellowship in Marine Conservation by the Duke University,
दत्ता काय टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लेम आहे का?
नमस्कार.
नमस्कार नमस्कार. निंबाळकर सर काय टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लेम आहे का?
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I Sneha Kulkarni from the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies of Boston Military College, Nasik. It is my proud privilege to extend you all a heartily welcome in this special webinar on marine diversity and its ecosystem, organized by CHP Societies, Boston Military College, and Kanoji Angre Maritime Research Institute on the occasion of International Coastal Cleanup Day. A warm and cherished afternoon to our most valued Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Deepak Apte, sir, Managing Director of Srishti Conservation Foundation. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of Kanoji Angre Maritime Research Institute and Bosla Metro College. Also, I extend my welcome to all the teachers, Ramnandi students, and everyone who is interested in the subject content and attending today's webinar. At the outset, I would like to present a brief introduction of our esteemed guest, Dr. Deepak Apte, sir. Dr. Deepak Apte is currently Managing Director at Srishti Conservation Foundation. His wildlife career spans over the 3.5 decades. His key areas of expertise are marine and coastal biodiversity, integrated coastal zone management, the climate change and land degradation, and nature conservation related policies. He completed his education as doctorate in zoology, specializing in marine ecology, postgraduate degree from University of Mumbai, zoology, integrated coastal zone management from Bengal, and marine policy from Duke University, USA. His wildlife career spans over 3.5 decades and contributed greatly to the conservation of nature and helped develop several policies at national and international level. He has completed 28 years service at Bombay Natural History Society prior to the joining as Executive Director of Srishti Conservation Foundation. As a principal scientist, he has implemented more than 50 major projects, over 1,000 training programs, and written over 100 popular articles and editorials and 35 technical reports. Besides traversing length and breadth of India's wildlife landscapes and seascapes, he has also traveled to about 50 countries for scientific and academic work, as well as presenting and participating in the international seminars and conferences. His work in the Lakshadweep archipelago has recently paved way to establish three community reserves under Wildlife Protection Act 1972, totaling 675 square kilometers of coral reef areas. He is recipient of several awards with fellowships. And awards include Department of Ocean Development, Government of India, recipient of the prestigious Green Oscar Whitley Award for his work on coral reefs and giant clams, recipient of three Whitley Continuation Award, Global Fellowship in Marine Conservation by the Duke University, USA, recipient of Kirloskar Vasundhara Green Teacher Award, recipient of 2019 Taru Lalwani Rotary Award for Environmental Conservation, recipient of 2010 award from Rotary Club of Thane for environmental conservation, and fellow of Lead India, fellow of International Visitors Program USA under Indo-US Exchange Program, fellow of Smithsonian Man and Biosphere Environmental Leadership Program. This is a very lavish and very extended. I have completed in a very short way. Sir is having very lavish biodata. And with this introduction, I welcome you, sir, and request you to share your pearls of wisdom with us. Over to Dr. Deepak Apte, sir.
Thank you. Let me share my PPT. Can you see?
Yes, it is visible. Can you make it on a full screen mode?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Is it full screen now? Is it full screen now?
Uh, Somewhat. You have to click on the full screen mode over the right
I
corner.
already done that. I can see on my laptop.
Uh,
I think this. Try.
okay, no issues,
In,
sir. Continue, sir, please.
any luck?
Yes.
Is it full screen now or?
But we are able to see it.
And the slides are changing? Hello. Can you hear? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Can you see the PPT, or shall I? I'll just try to share again. Now, is it? Can you see full screen, or still not possible?
Yes, sir. Yes, full screen is.
So
Okay.
it is visible.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I'll take a very quick review in next 20, 25 minutes, and then any other questions we can take up question answer. Uh, as you know, we are blessed with extremely vast land, almost up to 8,000 kilometers spread across 9 coastal states and 4 union territories. More than 20% of our coastline belongs to two island ecosystem, Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep, and our total EEZ is over 2.02 million square kilometer. Now that makes India one of the 12th mega biodiverse countries so far as marine and coastal biodiversity is concerned, simply because of extremely large coastline and very rich diversity of habitats and ecosystems. I will run through some of these interesting aspects of it in a few slides. Besides this vast coastal stretches that we have about 9 critical habitats which have been identified along the Indian coast. They are essentially based on the very rich biological diversity that we have. Andaman Nicobar on the east coast of India. Then we have Gulf of Mannar in Tamil Nadu. Vitarkanika, it's one of the probably finest mangrove ecosystem in the world in Orissa, and Sundarban in West Bengal. While as on west side, we have four critical habitats: coral reefs of Lakshadweep Islands, Malvan Marine Sanctuary in Maharashtra, Gulf of Khambat and Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat. Now, each of these sites has got very distinct characteristics in terms of habitat composition. But besides these 9, there are about 300 plus ecologically sensitive sites. They're not yet designated under any regulatory provisions of Government of India, but ecologically they're very, very rich. And Wildlife Institute of India uh, about a decade ago has listed all these key sites elaborately, and the data is available very much on the WI website for those who want to refer to. Now, since it is such a vast ecosystem spread across different gradients, habitat diversity, of course, is exceptional in India. And if you take look at some of the areas, for example, the top image on the left, which where my cursor is, now these are some of the most extensive, we should call it as intertidal flats that you can see in Gulf of Kutch. All the image below that is again very interesting image. This is one of the most shallow water coral reef formation that we have in Gulf of Kutch. Now this reef is very interesting because most of the reefs doesn't get fully exposed during low tide. They're partially submerged in extreme low tide, what we call it as neap tide or minus tides. That some of the corals will get exposed, but otherwise reefs usually does not get exposed fully. However, Gulf of Kutch reefs are very interesting because during low tide, these reefs get completely exposed, and that's one of the reasons that these reefs are much more resilient. If you look at the central, column of the images, we have some of the fantastic seagrass beds, mostly now confined to the Tamil Nadu in Gulf of Mannar, Andaman Nicobar. Lakshadweep, we have got some scanty patches of seagrass. We have got very good diversity of 1,000 plus species of seaweeds along Indian coastline. And then we have some spectacular island ecosystems that you can see on the right hand side, like all along east and west coast of India. And I'll speak a little bit about that later on. And some of the dunes area that you see in the right side image, unfortunately, dunes are considered as westland, like we consider wetlands in terrestrial domain as westland. Dunes are considered as westland, and they have been brazenly abused in terms of infrastructure development all across. So if you see in India, we almost lost more than 95% of some of the finest sand dunes. And sand dunes are extremely vital as a part of shoreline process, and especially in the times of high surge, etc., etc. They really provide a good buffer between land and sea. Unfortunately, most of the dunes, we have some very good dunes now. Last patches are remaining in parts of states of Gujarat and on the east coast of India. But otherwise, all along Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, we have lost virtually good dune formations. Because we have such a high diversity ranging from coral reefs to mangroves to seagrass to intertidal areas, sandy shores, rocky shores, we have got extremely rich species diversity. We yet don't know what is the number of species that we are talking about. Some estimate says 20,000, some estimate says 25,000, some estimate says more than 100,000. I think we are yet to discover the full potential of diversity of in coastal and marine biodiversity in India. And if you browse through the literature that is coming every year, almost 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 new species have been described in this realm every year in India through some academic institution. And bulk of the coastal area yet is still unexplored frontier. Whatever we know is from shallow waters, going up to 50 meters, where now there are good number of divers, good number of professional photographers from where information is coming. Yet, beyond 50 meters, there is very little known in terms of diversity that we have. Most of the knowledge beyond 50 meters to the depths is confined to only select government agencies. Very rarely this is available in a public domain. Just quick few slides in terms of diversity. Marine biodiversity is extremely colorful, far more colorful than what you see on land. Uh, but it's a very interesting fact for these colors. I mean, you're all probably are part of some other way domain of marine and coastal. And as you know, below 10 meter, all the spectrum of orange, yellow, etc., etc., within that range get fully absorbed between yellow to red. All the colors get absorbed below 10 meter. So when you actually dive below 10 meter, you will never see these vibrant colors unless you use artificial light. Therefore, for good quality photography, a good illumination below 10 meter is absolutely essential. So fishes, we have extremely rich diversity of fishes, both ornamental as well as commercial fishes. The echinoderms, what we call it as, there are 5 different groups of those: starfishes, brittle stars, sea urchin, feather stars, what we commonly call it as. We have 1,000 plus species of echinoderms that we have in Indian water. Even shrimps and crabs in coral reef ecosystems are extremely colorful. Uh, we have mollusk, what we call seashells, the gastropod, the pelecypods, bivalves, and univalves, and sea slugs. Again, more than 5,000 plus species exist in a marine realm in Indian waters. Corals, again, a very, very interesting group of animals. Uh, these are animals that belong to phylum Animalia, but within the tissue of these animals, there is a plant that resides. And this association, what we call as symbiotic association between coral polyp and the microalgae called as zooxanthellae, is most vital for the survival of coral reef. In fact, the entire ecosystem of coral reef survives on this very intricate relationship between presence of this microalgae inside the cell of a polyp of a coral reef. And if you see the second row, these two images, this right hand side image, you'll see where my cursor is. This is how almost monochromatic view you will see below 10 meter if you don't use artificial illumination. The moment you use artificial illumination, the true colors of the animal get highlighted. Yet, despite a large coastline, we still unfortunately have large number of species which are getting with every passing into the list of finding way into the list of endangered species.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. But your
Yeah.
screen is the first page, the presentation page, the coastal marine biodiversity. It's not
Oh,
altering.
that's why that's why no, that's why I asked you. Can you see this?
Now it's changed.
Now it's yeah. That's what first itself I asked you. Can you see something?
Uh,
Okay.
yes, now it is
On
changing.
yeah,
Right.
that's what I thought. Full screen. That's the problem with full screen. Yeah, this Google actual links are not
It
very
was
good for
not
that.
actually, but now it's altering. You may
Yeah,
continue,
yeah, yeah.
sir.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just run through some of these. Otherwise, they will not understand what I was talking about. Uh,
All right.
yeah. So these are the shrimps and crabs. These are the very colorful shells, and then we have got corals. This is what I was trying to brief. That this image where you see is more monochromatic without artificial light. Below 10 meters, I said there is no spectrum between yellow to red. But as you put flash, you'll see the true colors of these animals. But large number of species also getting endangered with every passing year. Well, number of factors. I'll speak the issues in last few slides at the end of the presentation. So the dugong, that one you see on the left top, is again critically endangered species in India. We yet don't know what's the number we are talking about, but we have a very small relic population in Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat. Another small population that we have in Gulf of Mannar, Malgam in Tamil Nadu, and the third population that we have in Andaman and Nicobar. And we assume that there are not more than 400 individuals left of the species in India. Though there is a good population of dugongs in other parts of tropical reefs like Japan and other Indonesia, Philippines, etc., etc. Humpback whales again are it's one species which used to be in a very bad shape because of extensive hunting. Slowly, the populations of humpback whales are recovering. Fortunately, because of large number of countries have now given a formal protection for its habitat. Whale shark, a classic story of how human intervention can actually help save a species. This was once hunted in a very large number all across Indian coastline, especially the Gujarat coast, where they have been hunted in very large number. After a very successful campaign by government of Gujarat, government of India, Indian Coast Guard, NGO groups, and private corporate like Tata Chemicals, large campaign over a course of 2 decades have virtually stopped hunting of whale sharks in India. There are sporadic accidental captures in the fishing nets, but fishermen now so well aware that immediately they will release the sharks into the water. So virtually there is a zero hunting of this species now in Indian water, and it's one of the great conservation success story as to if government, corporates, and NGOs and community come together, we can still be able to save this species from complete annihilation. Leatherbacks, we know they roam large seas. There have been sporadic records of this off the coast of Gujarat and Maharashtra. But the only area where they nest in India is Andaman and Nicobar Island. These are really long-range migrants, and I'll speak a little bit about it in a couple of slides. And then there are a large number of other species in the marine realm, which some of them are small, some of them are large. Uh, Slowly entering into the list of endangered species, whether it's oceanic whitetail, whether these are manta rays, or whether hawksbill turtle or blue whale, or the tiny sea slug that you see on the right hand side top corner. It's a tiny 5 millimeter sea slug. The entire global distribution of this species is only about 300 square meter in a small area called Poshitra Bay in Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat. So some of them are extremely wide-ranging, like pelagic sharks, which and whales which roam world oceans, while some species are so tiny in terms of its distribution. Both these are extreme cases, makes them extremely vulnerable uh, with conservation challenges. Uh, but Mother Nature is fantastic. I think forget about challenges are enormous, and we will need to find out ways to deal with how we are going to eventually uh, strike balance between development and conservation. But Mother Nature is fascinating, and in fact, my interest in nature started with this absolutely amazing aspect that you'll see while you walk along the shores. Now, those who walk the shore, you will always see these amazing, sand structures on during the low tide on sandy beaches. And as a kid, we always wonder who makes these beautiful sand beach structures all along the beaches during low tide. The beaches are full of this. It's actually a craftsmanship of a very tiny bubbler crab, which you can see on the right side image. Now, these crabs during low tide will come out of their burrows and they will forage into their areas. Now, these beads actually are not just the sand that these crabs have cleaned of organic matter by feeding on those, but these beads also act as territories. For example, this particular crab has a territory going all the way here. There's another smaller hole, the smaller crab, which has got a smaller territory. There's another small crab hole here, which has got a smaller territory here. So these are not just the sand which is cleaned by these tiny animals by feeding on organic debris, but they also mark their territories. And this is a very temporary structure. For 4 hours, you'll see this structure. Then again, high tide, this all will disappear. These crabs will go deep inside the sand. And again, next low tide, they will come out for foraging. I really call them as true ambassadors of Swachh Bharat. If anyone can clean coast as much as, and today is, the day that we are celebrating to clean beaches, I don't think there's any better ambassador than this tiny bubbler crab that you see in this image. They are the classic and one of the most efficient uh, cleaners of sandy areas that we know of, which keeps actually sandy shores very, very clean. On the other hand, these massive, humped parrot fishes, which almost grows to the size of 1 to 1.5 meter, uh, they essentially feed on corals. So people do say that these large shoals of humped parrot fishes destroy corals. Actually, it's contrary. They do feed on corals. Corals obviously will die, once the shoal of fish start foraging on it. But it also it produces almost 5 tons of sand each year, each parrotfish in its life. Now, all these islands, which are formed of coral sand, these fishes are primarily responsible for formation of this sand on the coral islands. And it also removes dead and old corals and allowing a fresh substrate for new corals to come in. So they have got a great role to play in regulating services so far as coral reefs are concerned. And then the Daribadas of Orissa, we are blessed as a country that we are among the 3 countries globally where this spectacle happens every year, where more than 1 million female olive ridley visit shores in Orissa to nest. And that's something when you are part of a coastal and marine study group, I think you should visit before you die, because this is nothing as spectacular as this turtle visiting the shores for nesting. And while hatching, when the hatching start, their number is 100 times more, because there will be billion turtles which will come out of those million nests and they will go to the sea. And that's the area where you definitely can help forest department by volunteering, because you require large number of volunteers really there to make sure that eggs are protected, there are no predators, they have been kept intact by predation for at least more than a month. Another fascinating species, my PhD was on this particular animal. It's called giant clams. They're again a bivalve. They're called mollusk, part of the group of mollusks. They have a life of almost 200 years, twice the size of a human being. They grow almost to a meter and feed exclusively on zooxanthellae, tiny microscopic algae which present in coral. The same microscopic algae is present inside the mantle of this animal. They are fixed at one place. They cannot move from one place to other place. They can move only when they are very young, or few days old. But once they anchor themselves in a substrate, they live at the same place all its life. They require sunlight, because these the zooxanthellae produce food for these animals, and therefore all these coral reefs or these giant clams or other species that we are talking about, which require sunlight as an important part of its life cycle, they occur in a very shallow areas between a meter to 40 meter. The diversity will change. It's not that at depth diversity is less, it's just that it changes to where there is no requirement of sunlight. So animals have adapted very differently at the depths. Sea cucumber, another fascinating animal. This one particular animal, group of animal, has got an extraordinary capacity of regenerating his body parts. If you try to pick this animal and try to squeeze it, it will throw out all the water. The animal will be very small. It's the body is so flexible, elastic, and leathery that it can hold almost up to 30 to 40 liters of water when fully extended. But you try to lift, it will take out first all the water, squeeze its body, become very small. Then, if you further try to disturb this animal, it will throw out all its visceral organs, right from intestine, cloaca, and respiratory tree, etc., etc. Uh, and that's something which predators avoid when they start throwing out their internal body organs, which are again very sticky and very messy. But the beauty of these animals is all these organ will get regenerated in a span of few weeks inside this animal. And this animal, that's why they say probably this is one animal which is undergoing currently lot of research R&D to look at which are the genes responsible for such an extraordinary regeneration capacity, and whether these genes can be used to repair damages to liver and other organs in human beings. So there is an extraordinary research currently going on. The important aspect is why this wildlife is so important for us, because these are the wild genes that we have, which nature is taking care of it. We have to ensure that for posterity of human civilization and humans as a species, we need to have these species in wild, and that is why these habitats has to be protected. Another fascinating animal, it's a dreadful animal, it's called box jellyfishes. Now this particular animal, the body of this animal is nothing but 99% water. It has a very small gelatinous substrate. It has got this very long tentacles which grow almost up to 3 meter. Almost transparent animal. You won't see in water. Many a times, you won't even see this head of the jellyfish. You'll probably, get stung by the tentacles, which are almost 3 meters in length. But this animal, possesses frighteningly powerful venom, among the most deadly that we know toxin in the world. Uh, this venom has a capacity to kill human being in a span of less than 5 to 10 minutes. There is no antidote available for this, and fortunately, we never used to have these animals in Indian water. But with climate change and changing surface temperature, etc., etc., there have been sporadic records of sightings of this animal in fishing nets, etc., etc., from Andaman Nicobar. We have not yet heard of it reaching to the west coast of India, but we have to be very careful for this. Those who love swimming, in reading about box jellyfish, there are closures of beaches in Australia, Indonesia, and other part Philippines, because seasonally they drift in shallow areas, and the contact of these tentacles is definitely fatal. There is no question about it. So extreme precaution is required. So when we are talking about expanding coastal tourism, we have to be extremely cautious and watchful of the changes that is happening in our ocean chemistry, because changes in ocean chemistry will bring in all kinds of species which we are not dealt with in the past. And box jellyfish is one such animal that we should be monitoring very closely, as slowly it started expanding its distribution from the conventional known areas. And then we have some of the most fantastic marathon swimmers and flyers. I'll not speak about flyers, but swimmers. If you look at it, humpback whale, it make annual migration between Antarctica to Pacific Ocean almost to the tune of 22,000 kilometers. Leatherback turtle, they have been tagged, satellite tagged from Little Andaman in Andaman Nicobar archipelago a few decades ago, and they have been tracked to travel to almost 20,000 kilometers before returning back to the same area for nesting. So that's an extraordinary characteristics of these animals, and yet there is still a lot of confusion as to how they are able to navigate these vast distances in an open featureless oceans for most of the time once they are in pelagic domain. But not all is well for our coastal and marine biodiversity. That's a tiny garland that you see along the neck of our beautiful coastline is actually it's not a garland. These are the different projects. These are either come up or going to come up in terms of structures, ports, then power plants, shipyard, shipbreaking units, etc., etc. So all our coastline, and then besides that, we are now building sea walls all over, hoping that sea wall will protect us from the rising sea level. Our coast is going to look very, very dramatically different another decade or so than what we used to see. What the memory I have of this coast 3 decades ago, today it's very different, and it's going to be far more different for my children and for my grandchildren, those who want to go to the sea. And we have to look at a balanced view of development into coastal areas. There are a number of challenges that we have today. Coastal development is one key. Growing aspirations of coastal communities will push coastal development into areas which otherwise, there were hardly any development there. We cannot stop this. However, how sensitively we can do it, considering the real risk of the sea to the humans, is that we need to understand. Elevated sea surface temperature, the sea surface temperature is changing all over. And it is considered that this is one of the main causative factor for the increased frequency of cyclones on the west coast of India. We never had so many cyclones on the west coast of India. Sea level rise is a reality. There is no question about it. Sea is coming to us, and we have to be extra cautious on the kind of damage the sea can cause to both the property as well as the human lives. Sand mining, again, a very serious issue, and it has become, again, of an extremely serious nature, because with sea level rise, the only area that can provide a buffer to the human settlement is the large tracts of sandy areas. Now, by doing sand mining, we are actually flattening. We are uh, finishing the natural slope that exists between low tide and high tide, making the settlement extremely vulnerable. For even high tides are now entering into villages in many places, forcing government to build sea walls and etc. etc. Commercial fishing, as you see in one that lower left image, this is a real-time image given, probably the old image. I just use a reference point, but these are the number of fishing fleets that today we have in international waters. Now, if you have, this is just within Indian EEZ that we are talking about, Indian and Maldives and that Chagos. But imagine if you take the snapshot of the world oceans, you will see that sea is not as blue as it is. It is with all these red flags. About this, because an apex predator or animal has been removed from an ecosystem, number of opportunistic species will take it over, and those opportunistic species not necessarily where we depend on, and that is where the trade-offs are going to be. And I'll speak that about in a couple of slides, and then we'll take question answer if there are any. Jellyfish invasion actually is, it's a man-made issue. Definitely, there's no question of it. And the frequency of now jellyfish invasion across, not just in India, globally, they are expanding their ranges. Not just the one which I have shown you as the box jellyfish, but all kinds of other jellyfish. Some of them are edible, some of them are highly toxic, but they're expanding their distribution. And today you see, this is how the images you will see if you go to Kerala in winter. The fishing nets are almost full of jellyfishes. But there is a different perspective that I always speak about it. We call it as invention in a very limited understanding of natural process in a human context, because if you get so many jellyfishes in nets, you won't get so many fishes nets. So it's a human dimension to this invasion. But in natural context, you take out human being from the scene, and then you try to understand and interpret the changes in the ecosystem in flora and fauna. Now, for example, in Lakshadweep, because this is where I have been working almost for 4 decades, and we have seen that the hard coral complex, the image on the left-hand side, which was dominated by Acropora and all other kind of coral form, Pocillopora, Stylopora, Poraitus favia, etc., etc., are slowly transiting to either more temperature resilient species like Poraitus. Like these groups are now probably more dominant here, and many of them are actually the they're not depending on zooxanthellae. Therefore, they can survive even in very low sunlight, even in very shady areas. They are not vulnerable to sea surface temperature because zooxanthellae is not present inside the animal. So, if you look at in a nature context, I think this change from system A to system B, as I said, in terms of jellyfishes, they are adapting to the changing ocean chemistry. It's a natural response which is giving. That is how the evolutionary processes happen. It's a simple evolutionary theory where nature is adapting itself to the changing climate, whether it's ocean chemistry, whether it's ocean temperature, etc., etc. Natural point of view, lots of people do chest beating that this whole world is going to get over, the biodiversity is going to get perish. I don't think that argument really has a merit, because earth has seen far more violent events than what we are causing today. I mean, look at the history of earth. A 2 billion years history of earth, it still survived some of the most violent event that you and I can even imagine in a human context. Yet biodiversity flourished. And I have no shred of doubt that biodiversity will continue to flourish. Why it matters to us most is because our lives are intricately associated with the resources that we are used to harvest from the sea. So, what will happen if fish disappear from, my pomfret disappear from the sea, the sardine disappear from the sea, my tuna goes disappear from the sea? Well, there will be something else. Sea is never going to be empty of the fishes. I think it's just that they will transit from more vulnerable species today in our context to all these changes that are happening. They will be taken over by the more generalist species, which has got more tolerant in terms of ranges of either temperature or acidity or other chemistry aspect of it. So I think if you take out the human dimension out of this debate, then this is just the nature's ecosystems are adapting to the changing climate, be it on land, be it on the sea. That's how the earth processes are. It's only matters to us when our own interpretation of these destructions comes in place, because we understand so little about this extremely dynamic system that exists on this planet Earth, which has a history of 2 billion years. It's not going to die out very easily just because of we believe that in next 50 years our oceans will be empty. I won't be there. Some of your younger generation will be there, and you will remember my words then. Oceans won't be empty by then. But it doesn't mean that we continue to be careless. I think we have to make every single effort to make sure that what we have seen in terms of today's reefs, they may not remain as it is over a course of time, but we should make effort that all these species will have a space, and that respect that we have to extend as a species to other species. That's what limited viewpoint I have. I'll stop the presentation, and if you have any other questions, we will take it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful presentation. And pictorial representation was very clear. Many things we have seen on the screen first time. We have heard about jellyfish or pomfrets, but the as a crab, as a real ambassador to clean the coast and all the stuffs, specifically the giant clams, the topic on which your PhD have done. All these things were new to us. On behalf of Kamri and the representative students, I want to ask you one question, sir. That as a citizen, we don't know much stuff about this fish or any particular species in the sea or ocean. But uh, what efforts should we have to take as a citizen of India uh, to make this diversity flourish and survive? Uh, or how to spread such a kind of knowledge amongst the students? Is there any
I think the easiest and simplest way to do a contribution individually is to we analyze our own lifestyle, and take it out things which we believe today are problem issues. So plastic pollution is a huge problem. Can we reduce use of our disposable plastic, say by 50% or 70% over next 1 or 2 years? Get adapted to use more, cotton-based bags. That my parents never used to have plastic. Plastic bags were never there 30 years ago. They started coming only out in last 3 decades, and become today
Yes.
menace. Before that, all our generation never used it. So
Yes.
if see, if this lot depends on the consumption patterns that we have. So the life program that Mission Life, what Prime Minister's has announced, and which was a flagship theme for the recent G20. Actually, it speaks about reinventing our own culture, because our culture historically lived with wildlife. Tigers are not new to us. Uh, Indians have lived with tigers. Tiger used to kill people. Then they used to kill people. They killing people now. Yet we are far more tolerant to that animal than probably any other community that you can think of in the world. Look at what Americans have done to the wolves. Totally exterminated that species. We have not yet exterminated any species, honestly speaking. I think we have to go back to our roots. Answer lies into that, and once we understand what our roots were, what our roots should be, and once you accept and adopt a more holistic and more, uh, you know, uh, uh, environment friendly lifestyle, I think, we drive markets. If there are no buyers, they won't produce plastic bags. They will switch on to more profitable product. They will not stop business. You mean to say, if you stop using plastic, the people will go out of business? No, they will find some other ways to deal with it. I think it all leads to lifestyle. And I sincerely appeal all those here, please go to the website of Ministry of Environment Forest. Uh, Try to see what this whole life means. And I think the answer to lot of the problem, there may not be answer for everything, but lot of the answers are in this life program. Please go there. You will find a lot of
Yes, like Americans have faced some kind of lacking of tuna fish. The species was totally diminished excess fishing in our coastal areas. You have seen such a kind of threat in your experience?
Well, overfishing is a global phenomena. Why only US? We all are doing excessive fishing, and again, it's not very easy as it's been said, because we ourselves has led to this situation because of our greed, because of our whatever you call growing aspirations, etc., etc. Our fishing fleets has expanded by 200%. Government has given subsidies which we shouldn't have given actually. The subsidies has driven people to fish more and more and more. And now the situation is changing where your commercially important fishes, so they have to put more efforts to fish. It means they will use more fuel for running boats. I think it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious cycle. That's what I'm saying. You go to the life mission. Uh, you know, all these answers you will get into why this program has been adopted now globally. I think it's a visionary program by our Prime Minister. There's no question about that. Uh, uh, Again, I said all the question that you are asking, the answer rest in this, in the life. Turn vegetarian. Why we have to be always non-vegetarian? If well, stop eating fish, people will not fish. But the question is, you know, how far we can take this argument in that logical sense. People used to eat fish earlier also. It's not something new. I think it's our greed. And plus, we also have to understand that ocean chemistry is changing. Okay. So the natural spawning ability of fish will change with changing ocean chemistry. Excessive fishing, we are taking out all large fish. We are not allowing some of the fish to go back and breed. So their number of eggs are getting reduced with every passing year with over harvesting. Answer rests in our own actions. Government has said we have to close fishing for 4 months, but how many of us honestly follow it? Mostly none. You go to Goa, you go to Kerala, you go to Gujarat, you go to Karnataka. Nobody bothers about monsoon fishing ban. Monsoon fishing ban has been kept by government only because most of these commercially important fish breed in that season. So once they
Right.
breed, you will have a next generation available as a resource. If you don't stop fishing when they breed, you're not allowing them to breed. So all these, again, I said, are man-made problem, and that's what this life is all about. We have to go back to our roots. Traditionally, if you see in all across Maharashtra to Gujarat to Karnataka, we used to have this rapand system where they used to only do fishing near shore areas. They never used to do fishing in monsoon. That's how they used to get plenty of fish in 4 months of time, adequate for them to have resources for throughout the year. I think the life is what we should make this as a mission. It's not just a tokenism. A lot of people, most of the time, I have seen this very, big cynicism. What is big this about life? All, you fly new titles, new themes. Those who say they have not understood what life is all about.
Right. Absolutely right, sir. And
Yeah,
it should be an ongoing mission, and
yeah,
absolutely it is in our hand to how to stop it and how to manage it
yeah,
or how to mitigate these kind of threats to marine diversity.
yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
And concluding today's special webinar, it is my
Thank you.
privilege to propose the vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked hard to make webinar on International Coastal Cleanup Day really successful. On behalf of Central Hindu Military Education Society's Bhosla Military College and Kanoji Angre Marine Research Institute, I give a really heartfelt vote of thanks to our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Deepak Apte sir, who spent his busiest time gracing this occasion. And today we had the opportunity to hear your thoughts on marine diversity and its ecosystem. And this is definitely encouraging us in the future events. It was very insightful. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and shown us a new path. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to, yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to all the CHB Society official and especially to Dr. S.G. Naravane sir, along with Honorable Principal of Bhusla Military College, Dr. Dinesh G. Naik sir, for the perfect logistical support and guidance they have extended to all of us. I would also like to thank Dr. R.I. Raut sir, HOD of Department of Defense and Strategic Studies of Bhusla Military College, and most importantly, Assistant Professor Dattatreya Nimmakar for his role in promotional activities through various mediums and for efficient technical support. I also thank Mr. Digvijay Mankar and everyone who contributed independently for better communication and coordination. And with that, I thank our viewers who joined us virtually. This was telecasted on YouTube Live. So those who have missed any part of this webinar, they can see all the part on YouTube, and we look forward to welcome you all again in our future ventures. Thank you all. Jai Hind.